start off with, you have to decide how long you want your axe to be. Now in this case I've decided on 135 centimeters. That's just about, or just short of 1.5 meters. And then you use that measurement, looking at reference photos of the actual axe to work out what all the other dimensions on it are. Now the actual axe head is going to be made out of 2 layers of EVA foam, and then the main staff of it is going to be made out of the electric conduit, with all the detailing at the butt and front made separately and stuck on at the end. Now once you've worked out what all the scales are, you draw them onto the foam and cut it out. Now to draw it onto the foam, I use chalk because chalk marks this stuff and then gets wiped off easily. As you can see, I've previously been working on this piece of foam. I've marked the axe head onto the bit of foam. Now, as you can see here, I don't actually have the bit that's going to go around the pipe because I'm going to make that circular bit separately and stick the axe head on. And again, just drawn on all the detailing there. And this is where the staff's going to be. This pipe is an offcut of one of the big ones I'm going to be using because it's not long enough. And I've also left enough space around the top of this so that you can actually make a little socket for it to fit into at the end, just so it's solidly attached to this body. Now I'm going to cut this out. To do that you have to use a sharp knife because this foam does start to tear when you start using a relatively blunt knife. And yeah, just do that. Then once it's cut out, turn it over so the non-flat side's facing up, cut it out again so they'll fit like printed side to printed side. Once you've cut out your main blades, as such for the axe head, cut a sharp angle on this section by here. Now this is the same on both sides, and it's just so that it forces them apart to give it enough space for the actual staff to fit into. And then glue those 2 bits together. Then once you've done that, get the staff in the centre of it, wrap it round. If there's a little bit of a gap, because I didn't leave enough space in my case, I may have to add some more onto the outside. I taped the axe head together just to test it out on the staff, and it's just a little bit off shape. So in order to make the extra size, I've cut this little triangle, which fits up in between like that. And it just opens out the bottom, and just enough to let the staff inside cleanly. I am using hot glue to stick all of this together, and a good tip when working with hot glue: when you're dealing with complicated bends that actually need to be really tight, you can stick them together with masking tape, which will hold the seam pretty much put together with only a little gap, which is very easy to fill and correct afterwards. Whereas when you're sticking large surface areas together, like the edge of the axe, clothes pegs pretty much hold it and keep the pressure on, which means you can make it a lot quicker instead of having to hold it by hand for like an hour. I've now just got to make 2 rings that go on there, and a little bit for the bottom, which is, I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to be, but I imagine it's an Orcish weapon. I imagine it's used for clubbing. I've put the 2 rings on the neck, or on the staff, which hold the blade on, and I've also put a little bit of wadding up inside here so that it's relatively stable. But at some point I'm going to have to fill that little gap because I've left a little bit too much of gap around, but that was just my calculations being off. Now I have to put an edge onto this. I'm going to do that with an electric sander or a sanding belt, but because not everyone has one of them, you can also do it with a file or sandpaper, but the easiest is with my sander, so I'm going to do. I've now ground the edges off on the head, like such, and I've done the inside with Dremel just to give it a little bit more of a curved edge, because the 90-degree thing doesn't really look that good. And then I've gone down to this end, and I've added this little bit here, which just adds a bit more of a curve going in the opposite direction to the hammerhead, or the axe head. and then this little bit which is going to be painted up as a stone at the end. Now this is ready for sealing and painting. I have my axe back from painting. Now this has just been done with a layer of plasti dip across the EVA foam and then a coat of chrome. Yeah, a coat of chrome over that. And I've done the same on the rock on the end because for some reason my rock is now chrome, but I'm going to be dulling it down a bit with paint anyway. So I'm now going to start the weathering of it. For this I'm going to be applying grey acrylic with sponges. Hopefully it works well. Again, it's one I haven't tried before, but I've seen and it looks good, so yeah. We'll see in a minute. I've now painted the top of the blade, or at least done the weathering on it. That all of the darker sections for it are just grey acrylic, which I haven't watered down or anything. I just put very little amount onto a sponge and rubbed it on, just to try to make it look patchy, you know, like actual weathering. And then I used some leftover green paint or green wall paint, which I watered down in order to make it spread more and make it thinner so it doesn't look so bad. And I used that on these sections here, where I'm assuming this is made of brass, because that would start to go down to be copper. Don't ask me about the colour scheming. And I did the rock just to dull it down a bit with the grey. Now I'm going to be wrapping the handle next. Now for this I'm going to be using thin strips of brass. To wrap the handle, I've already done a little bit while the battery was dead on the camera, so I've already done the top section there. Now to do this I got a strip of fake leather. I tried to keep it to the same width all the way across, but it doesn't matter if it's a bit of a mess because you can't really see it on the end thing. Okay, to wrap this I get a long strip of fake leather. I then stick the centre of it up the top and then wrap it around in 2 counter-rotating spirals going down the staff, and stick it every time they cross on the top, just to stop it sliding around, which, you know, you don't really want it sliding around. Now when you're cutting the original thickness bits, if you cut them too thick you'll just cover it all with none of the black showing, which is supposed to be. So it doesn't matter whether you get it all to the same width, because these are quite badly cut and you can barely tell. Again, you'll know it's badly cut, but I don't think anyone else would really notice. So I'm just going to stick it all on, and again, this is the length of strip I'm using. Just a little bit. Yeah, got a little bit more exposed down there than I like, but spider webs, let's give her them. Tap it down a little more. Okay, that's the wrapping done. And to be fair, that is one mostly finished axe, if I just can keep the spiders off of it. Now that I've finished my axe, I actually quite like it. This is actually a lot cooler than I thought it would be. And I mean, when I started this, I was just looking through for weapons to build. I just saw this and thought, oh, that could be a bit of fun, but this is actually really quite awesome. So yeah, this as minimum is going to end up on my wall. May actually make a costume for it. So, okay, as per usual with my things, if I was going to do it again, I would do that bit a little better, because I haven't filled it in properly. Again, I didn't expect anyone to actually see it beyond photos, so, you know, I may have done the painting around there a little better, because the silver spilt over onto the staff, and the staff itself is supposed to be black. And of course, filler on there and in the blade, because you can clearly see the sandwich. Well, you can't clearly see it, but you can see it well enough if you're looking up close like that. But yeah, overall, love it.